Hi, I'm Non from My Authentic Style, and this channel is dedicated to helping you find your authentic style. In this video, I'll be discussing who David Kibbe is and talking more about the system that he developed. I like the Kibbe system of body typing, and I think it's a great tool for anyone who wants to understand and or holistically develop their personal style. That said, it's no secret that this system is confusing. Add to that, there's a glossary of terms that come up again and again whose understanding is critical for the new Kibbe enthusiast. For example, what is Kibbe Width? What is double curve? And what is your vertical line? If you're just starting to look into this type of body typing, all of this can be very confusing. And the purpose of this video is to help by defining what all of that is. In particular, I'll be talking about David Kibbe, the man and the system, what yin and yang mean with respect to the Kibbe system, Kibbe width, Kibbe curve, double curve, your vertical line, and what it means to be Kibbe verified. And now a quick disclaimer before I go any further. I don't claim to be an expert on the Kibbe system, just an enthusiast who really sees the merits of defining style along these terms. I've spent a lot of time doing research and fine tuning my understanding of the system, and so I feel fairly confident being able to explain it to other people. That said, when defining something as inconcrete as essences and yin and yang, and using a system that originated in somebody else's head that is constantly shifting, there's a lot of space for misunderstanding or misconstruing. So, if there are any points that you feel I have gotten not quite right, I'm more than happy to discuss it in the comments so we can learn from each other. And I'm thanking you in advance for your understanding and your grace. So, who is David Kibbe? David Kibbe is a stylist who came into prominence in the 80s and is most famous for his book Metamorphosis: Discover Your Image Identity and Dazzle as Only You Can, in which he outlined 13 body image identities. These identities were based on how much yin and yang, which I'll explain later, a person has and demonstrates. Going from most yang dominant to most yin dominant, the original 13 image identities are dramatic, soft dramatic, flamboyant natural, natural, soft natural, dramatic classic, classic, soft classic, flamboyant gamine, gamine, soft gamine, theatrical romantic, and romantic. Kibbe later modified this list of 13 down to a list of 10 by removing all the pure types. He now believes that nobody is a pure type, but they lean more soft, yin, or dramatic, yang, within their image identity. So, the updated 10 image identities are thus dramatic, soft dramatic, flamboyant natural, soft natural, dramatic classic, soft classic, flamboyant gamine, soft gamine, theatrical romantic, and romantic. Those 10 identities are what are represented on the screen right now. Notice how there's no pure natural, pure classic, or pure gamine. And now let's learn the Kibbe language, starting with yin and yang. The Kibbe system essentially measures a person's yin and yang composition to determine which category or body type they belong. Yin encompasses all that is soft, small, curved, and rounded. In short, yin refers to elements that are traditionally considered feminine. Yang encompasses all that is hard, sharp, elongated, and structured. In short, yang refers to elements that are traditionally considered masculine. Kibbe width. This refers to an openness to the features, particularly seen through the upper torso and back. Kibbe width does not mean wide or broad, and we should be careful not to assign it in such a way. Let's consider this example. If I look at the three women pictured here and had to judge who I thought had width through the shoulders, I would look at the size of the T silhouette as demonstrated. The T silhouette measures the width of the shoulders as measured against the length of their overall height from top to bottom. I would say that Charlize Theron to the right has the widest T silhouette, followed by Keira Knightley to the left, and Gisele Bündchen has the narrowest silhouette. Based on this, I would expect Gisele to be yang dominant without width, so probably a dramatic type. I'd expect Charlize to be yang dominant with width, so a natural type, and most likely a flamboyant natural type. And lastly, I'd expect Keira to be either of the two. In reality, while Charlize is a verified flamboyant natural, Keira is a verified dramatic, and Gisele is a verified flamboyant natural. So, in Kibbe terms, Gisele has more width than Keira Knightley, and a similar width to Charlize Theron. So again, Kibbe width is not broadness. Understanding it may take some time and practice because it's not as straightforward or intuitive as we might think. So then, what is Kibbe width? Well, Kibbe width is more a measure of openness in the structure and is designed to answer the question, does this person have to accommodate their width? Do they have to take it into account when putting on clothes? Naturals, and especially flamboyant naturals, have to consider their shoulders when buying an item. They have to ask, will this item fit my shoulders? And the answer to that determines whether or not they buy it. As a flamboyant natural myself, this is very real for me. I've always had to make sure that items, and in particular closed tops or outerwear, so turtlenecks, t-shirts, jackets, and blazers, fit my shoulders. While my frame is narrow and has been throughout my life, my shoulders are broad for that frame. And when I was younger, I would assume I would just buy a small because that's what visually I look like, and typically that's what I wear. But I quickly learned that for closed items that are designed to fit my upper body and for outerwear, I have to fit the item because I have to accommodate for whether or not my shoulders are going to work with that item. Now, let's look at what the absence of width looks like by considering some theatrical romantics. Here we have Jada Pinkett Smith to the left, Mila Kunis in the middle, and Salma Hayek to the right. For me, all of their bodies are clearly compact, but unlike the other two, Jada's is also visually wide and squarish. That said, she doesn't have Kibbe width. Theatrical romantics do not have Kibbe width because even with a possibly broad appearance, their small stature means they will never have to accommodate for width in their search for clothing. Theatrical romantics, even the widest looking ones, never have to ask, will this shirt fit my shoulders? As such, they don't have Kibbe width. This might be a very simplistic way of understanding this, but it did help me when I was first trying to grasp the concept. The main point here is that Kibbe width is not a function of visual broadness, and more an accommodation of the width that a person has. Now let's discuss Kibbe curve. In common language, curves means the general existence of a defined waist or having a desirable hip to waist ratio. In Kibbe terms, curves means rounded lines in someone's body. As stated before, the Kibbe system is one of determining which accommodations are necessary for each body type. Having Kibbe curve doesn't mean you're curvy. It means you have to accommodate for curve in your clothing. Now, let's look at this example. According to Kibbe, romantics and theatrical romantics are curve dominant. So since Jada Pinkett Smith and Mila Kunis are theatrical romantics, they have Kibbe curve, even though their outward representation is not what we generally consider curvy. In comparison, both Candace Swanepoel to the left and Gigi Hadid to the right are flamboyant naturals. This means that they are yang types, and further, that they are frame dominant and don't have to accommodate for curve. So while they are visibly curvy, and arguably more visibly curvy than the theatrical romantics we just looked at, they don't have to accommodate for curve in their clothing. This means that they wear and actually look their best in free-flowing clothes that don't follow their curves. In contrast, curve-dominant types like romantics need fitted clothing that follows their curves or they get lost. I'll demonstrate. Selma Hayek, to the left, is a verified theatrical romantic, and she looks amazing in this figure-hugging gown. Her curves are front and center, and she oozes sexiness. In a similarly tight style, Cindy Crawford, to the right, is a certified flamboyant natural. She looks bound and restricted. Her clothes need to be looser and allow for movement to suit her lines and her essence better. This also highlights that even when curvy women, because Cindy Crawford is curvy, I can see her curves. So even when flamboyant naturals are curvy, they're still frame dominant, meaning their frame comes to the forefront. I first see Cindy's large frame before I see her curves. Kibbe Double Curve. Double curve is a way to describe a body that is made up of two circles, which are curved lines, sitting on top of each other, like a snowman. For someone to have double curve, these curved lines have to clearly encompass most of their body. There is a smallness required for this to be possible. So typically, only romantics, theatrical romantics, and occasionally soft gamines showcase double curve. Again, double curve has nothing to do with whether a person is visually curvy or not. Okay, I do have to say that for me personally, double curve is one of the concepts I struggled with the most when I was discovering Kibbe. So my understanding is through that lens and it might be flawed. Just a disclaimer. So please do your own research, but this is what I understand at this point. Let's consider these two women. In this example, Jada Pinkett Smith to the, well, she's to the right of Hannah. She has double curve, and Hannah Waddingham to the left doesn't. Visually, Hannah is clearly curvier than Jada, but let's consider how the snowman sits on each of their bodies. The snowman sits comfortably on Jada's body, and more importantly, it covers most of her body, including her entire chest. So she has double curve. It sits well on Hannah from the chest down, and I believe Hannah is a soft dramatic. This is unverified, but if correct, that would make her both frame dominant and curve dominant, and I think that describes her perfectly. She is both large and curvy. So her curves make a natural home for the curved lines of the snowman, but her large frame means it can't fit over her entire body or most of it. Specifically, her upper chest and shoulders fall squarely outside of the demarcated area. So she doesn't have double curve. All three of these women have double curve. Mila Kunis to the left, Selena Gomez to the middle, and Beyonce to the right. Mila and Selena are both theatrical romantics, verified, and Beyonce is a verified romantic. Their snowman encompasses most of their bodies and their entire chest. There's also a certain petiteness and delicacy to them and their bone structure, which is typical of the more yin dominant types. All three of these women, while curvy, do not have double curve. Again, I believe Hannah Waddingham to the left is a soft dramatic. I believe Kendall Jenner in the middle is a flamboyant natural. And Jennifer Lopez to the right is a verified soft natural. The top of their snowman does not cover their full chest. In each case, the upper chest falls outside the specified area. What's more, the shoulders are large and pronounced outside of that area in a manner that the women with double curve, so these women, are not. Notice how much smaller their shoulders are in comparison to these women. In other words, these women have a dominant frame and that frame stands out. A person with double curve will not have a large dominant frame. Kibbe width or elongation. Kibbe vertical or elongation. The vertical line is observed in the silhouette between the shoulders and knees and has to do with how fabric falls on the body. In this image, let's consider the length of the skirt of each dress as measured against the entire length of the dress and the proportions of the wearer. In the first image to the left, although it's floor length, that's the pink dress, the skirt looks short to me, making the whole dress seem awkward in its proportions. This means that the wearer has a short vertical line. As such, a floor-length gown will not visually sit correctly because she doesn't have enough length to let it flow naturally. In the middle look, Lupita Nyong'o is perfectly proportional and she looks amazing. She is a classic, meaning she is perfectly blended and her vertical line is moderate. It's neither short nor long. The length of the skirt looks balanced and she looks beautiful. In the last image to the right, Blake Lively looks amazing in her dress. I believe she's a flamboyant natural, and she clearly has a long vertical line. The skirt of her dress is clearly the longest part of her dress, and this length falls naturally over her frame. She looks proportionate. Here again, these floor-length full skirt dresses highlight the presence or absence of vertical of the wearer. To support the long length, a long vertical is needed, otherwise the dress will swallow the person wearing it, particularly when the skirt is this A-line or puffy. This is what happens to Kate Bosworth in the first image to the left. She has a short vertical line, so this very long green dress looks off on her. The skirt looks as though it's shorter than it should be, and it swallows her bottom half. Visually, the skirt is not in balance with her as a whole, and she looks out of proportion. Jennifer Lawrence to the right is a flamboyant natural, so she has a long vertical line. While this style of dress is not necessarily her best, she carries off this length effortlessly. The skirt is clearly the longest part of her dress, and her frame animates it beautifully. She looks in proportion. Now let's look at this with Yara Shahidi and Jordan Dunn. Yara is a short type. I believe she's a gamine based on her at first glance, based on her proportions and just some of the styles that really bring her to life. And I believe Jordan is a dramatic, again, at first glance and based on what suits her best. So these two are on the opposing vertical scale. In the similar dress, Yara looks much better than Jordan does. On Jordan, this midi length is very off on her, and it actually makes her look shorter than she is. She looks out of proportion. The flare of the skirt is also not her best because as a dramatic type, she's better suited to styles that are streamlined and follow and highlight her long, thin body. On Yara, this length helps to actually give her proportion, and I don't feel it's necessarily her best style either, but she does look beautiful. It does work on her, specifically the length, and she can pull this off. Now let's look at Yara in these long line dresses. Here, the long vertical line pulls her down because she doesn't have the vertical to carry it off. In the green dress to the left, I again see that skirt is not proportionate to the rest of her body. It looks to me like her skirt is too short for the dress, and something looks off. In all the looks, the first three, there's this effect of just pulling her down, and she doesn't look her best. The look to the right in the maroon is the best because it's the shortest. So just cutting off the length and showing her ankles does so much for her. And it's also streamlined to her body. So nothing is swallowing her up. All of these things are moved towards what looks better for her. Now let's compare Jordan in similar long length styles. She looks amazing. These long head to toe floor length gowns are made for her. They highlight her long vertical and she looks like a star. Now let's look at Yara in shorter gamine type styles. This is her best length. She looks amazing and proportionate, and she's a small person and I can see that, but it's not in the way where I fixate on it and because the clothes are swallowing her up. She actually looks just normal. I hate to use that term, but her stature doesn't become front and center in the way that it was before. I especially love this third look with the yellow heels and the floral pattern. She looks amazing. And if she could wear that every day for the rest of her life, I think she should. These lengths suit her and accommodate for her petiteness in a way that makes her shine. Now, on Jordan, these similar lengths do not suit her. Something about the midi dress, the first one, the golden dress, that length is neither long nor short. It kind of just sits there and it doesn't suit her well. And the shorter ones, a lot is going on. So it's not just the length of the outfits, but also the styling and the patterns and the fabrics. But focusing on the lengths, this is a far cry from this. Here she was the star. She just looked so harmonious and so beautiful. And here she is stripped of that star power because these looks are so inharmonious with her. Now, I put these here to say I'm not trying to say that a type with a long vertical line like Jordan's dramatic cannot wear short items. Of course they can. These are the supermodels that look amazing in ultra short outfits, as demonstrated in these looks. The key thing here is that these are so short that we actually perceive her long vertical through her body, meaning her legs and her skin create that vertical behind the item she's wearing. So she looks amazing in ultra short things and ultra long things. But these that fall somewhere in the middle somewhat, they are her least flattering. Another thing to note is the choice of fabrics and patterns used in these looks as compared to these looks, because those are important too. To further highlight this, here's a comparison of her in all yellow dresses. And for me, the first two long dresses are the best, especially the one that is fitted to her body and streamlined, the second from the left. This follows her body well and this suits her dramatic recommendations. The midi dress to the right of that is the least flattering. It's again neither long enough nor short enough, and it just kind of messes with her proportions. The short dress, the short yellow dress, the length is flattering, but the dress itself has elements that are not her best. They lean a little too romantic, like the bare shoulder. So, not her best, but not particularly because of the length. But again, looking at this collage, I can say she definitely looks her best in the long lengths. So understanding your vertical line is important because it alters how a look is perceived on you as a whole, and it'll be more or less flattering based on how you align that with your body type and the best recommendations for your body type. What does it mean to be Kibbe verified? A person or a celebrity whom David Kibbe saw and typed in person is Kibbe verified. In the Kibbeverse, this is the most accurate typing that can be done, and Kibbe is seen as the final word on any body type that may be confusing. Unfortunately, very few people have been verified by Kibbe himself, which is why there is so much debate, which is often heated, on so many celebrities on in the world of Kibbe. Finally, my thoughts on the Kibbe system. I obviously love this system. I think it has great merit, the best of which is how it isn't corrective in nature. Instead, it teaches people how to view their bodies holistically and lean into and highlight what they naturally have. That said, it is very confusing. I've circled through my fair share of body types to know just how confusing it can be. In his defense, David Kibbe has clearly stated that his system is not meant to be a rigid body typing system. Rather, it is an image identity system based on someone's physical traits and intangible and shifty ideas such as overall softness and essence. So difficult is it to grasp this system that David Kibbe himself is the only person who can unquestionably verify an image identity. While I understand this to an extent, I think this is where the confusion begins. As far as systems go, when one person's view can trump even his own previous systematic analysis, it creates space for great misunderstandings. Add to that the general hazy and ever shifting nature of the quote unquote rules, and you have the perfect scenario for confusing and even contradicting ideas on what David Kibbe means by certain things. So, the system is imperfect. That said, it's very useful, and I think with some time dedicated to trying to understand the Kibbeverse, it can be grasped enough to really be beneficial to any user. My advice is to give yourself time to play with the lines of the body types you think might be yours. Keep in mind that it's difficult for most people to answer the Kibbe test questions objectively, often because the language makes it difficult to understand the test because most of us don't think about our bodies in those terms. So you might have some false starts. I would go so far as to say you should expect it. I've heard that finding your image identity can take about 6 months of experimenting, and this seems realistic. My journey was much shorter, but I was determined, and I think my type was not obvious, but not as confusing as some other people might find theirs. What's taken longer for me is learning how to translate the style recommendations for my body type into a real wardrobe. This is a long process and I'm enjoying it. So, in short, use the system as a tool. Be patient with yourself and don't lose your mind. And of course, remember to have fun with it. Wherever you are on your personal style journey, the Kibbe system can be a great one if used with understanding and discernment. I hope this glossary will help in that understanding. Now, I again invite you to share with me if you think I got anything wrong or if you have a different interpretation of something so we can continue this conversation in the comments. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you liked the video and that you learned something from it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. In fact, please do all the things. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on your notifications. If you like this kind of content and want to read more before the next video, hop on over to my website where I have tons of posts for you to read through. Otherwise, from me none, big love, and I'll see you on the next one.